So the reason why race is real is because we evolved in different environments and we had different breeding groups, right? So we all didn't share. Like, for instance, let's say that randomly nature made a particular person brilliant, and that person spread their genes right throughout their environment. Well, let's put it this way: let's say a group of people, nature randomly makes people smart, right? It's not something that you can make; it's just random. So those groups of people.
Well, that's actually incorrect. Like, intelligence is an inheritable characteristic.
It can be, but it also has some randomness to it.
Sure, obviously based on development in the womb, but again, this doesn't add anything to race realism, because race realism has to do with a gene.
No, it doesn't.
And there's no gene that determines race. Race is a social construct.
No,
and it's constructed as a hierarchy to where white people are viewed as the privileged class. No, and then all other races, yeah.
It's a reality.
That's what you can see within America. Sure, there are a lot of social constructs that are reality. Money is a social construct, and that is real.
Money is money is a ledger. It's
still a social construct. It exists only because we created it.
Because we have to keep tabs on debts, right?
Is it a social construct?
Everything is a social construct then.
No, it's not.
The name is a social construct. Why can't I just know that you
Yes. Right. Things that are created by man can be social constructs.
Right. So you're confusing what the society does to categorize things with those things themselves. The things already exist.
No, I'm not.
Right? Yes, you are. The things already exist, and we
money did not already exist.
See them. No,
money did not already exist.
Trading exists.
What race are Arabs?
They're part of the Caucasian race.
So all Arabs are Caucasian?
No, they don't have to be. It just depends. You could have so-called Arabs that are sub-Saharan African, but I don't consider them that. Most categorizations won't consider them that either. Right.
So then obviously race isn't like real, because then you would just essentially be able to point to a gene and say this is their race. There are black Arabs, there are phenotypical white Arabs. Same with people who are Latina. I was asking Duels for a definition on race realism.
Right. So I was explaining to you how it works. So human beings, same species. Within that species, different types of humans. Why are there different types of humans? Because those humans have different reproductive groups, right, and different environments in which they evolved. And because of that, there's going to be differences, right? So those differences is what we can see, or what we colloquially call race. Now, the race is just speaking to the differences that are already there. And that's what you guys are kind of obfuscating. And that's why race is real.
That doesn't tell me what the definition of race realism is.
Right. So the definition of it is the different groups, the different breeding groups you come from in the different areas, right? So for instance, if you take a group of Zambians and you start having them interbreed with each other, and they do it in Germany, right? Without sharing any genetics with the native Germans, those Zambians are going to have different outcomes. They're going to have different outcomes because they have different brains and different abilities, right? And the outcomes they have is not because of the Germans using any kind of discrimination against them. It's because the two have different minds, literally. So you'll be able to tell the difference. If you saw a group of Zambians and a group of Germans, you're going to be able to tell the difference. Therefore, race is real because you can see a difference.
What are the biological principles of race?
I just told you that the biological principles are the evolutionary differences amongst.
Those are influenced by environment, and those are just socially categorized as phenotypic examples of race. They're not biological principles.
So in the United States of America, people of African descent have shared the same environment with people of European descent, yet they have different intellectual disparities. If they were the same, if race wasn't real, why is that so? Why does that exist?
Because of their environment. Obviously, black people in the United States and white people. Wait, I don't know why you're talking. You asked a question. They do not have the same environment. I would say experiencing America as a black person and experiencing America as a white person is very different. There are racial disparities that black Americans experience that white Americans do not, especially when it comes to schooling, housing, education, housing, the judicial system, so on and so forth.
Right. So when she said the environment, she's confusing me. So social attitudes aren't the natural environment. Is she talking about natural environment, or is she talking about social attitudes? Because how did social attitudes in Europe affect anyone in Africa when they evolved for thousands of years apart?
She's talking about how Black people experience literal different environments through things like environmental racism because we are redlined in certain places. And so we do not share the same environments as white people in the United States.
Hierarchy. And this is just a social construction, essentially, to where white people are viewed as the privileged group. We can see historically that being white hasn't been defined by really many or any biological characteristics other than like typically light phenotypical skin. Even in the United States, people from Ireland or people from Italy experienced racism and then were eventually classified as white people, therefore becoming a part of the privileged group when their biology didn't change at all. So if we do consider race to be a social hierarchy where white people are at the top and everyone else is at the bottom, then obviously they can't experience racism because they are the privileged group.
So how many differences can you see before you admit that something is wholly different from something else? When they do intelligence tests, you see consistently differences, right? In these intelligence tests, behavioral tests, all of it. So it leads me to conclude that the disparities we see in America are a result of the differences with the human beings in which these disparities exist within. I'll give you one short clip here because I can't see how much time I have. This thing is blocking it. But people of African descent with a high amount of admixture, Caucasian admixture, tend to test better than people of African descent with no admixture of European genes.
Essentially talking about social constructs, I think we can recognize that not all social constructs are created equal. Like obviously money is a social construct and there's really nothing you can do in society to change how money works or to just create more money for yourself.
So like I told you before, there are certain genes, certain gene expressions you're going to find.
I'm asking which ones.
Someone from Germany that you're not going to find in me.
What are their names? So I'm asking.
I'm not a molecular biologist. You have to ask a molecular biologist.
How do you know this?
What do you mean? How do I know this? Because it's
I really just want to move past race religion. Like if you can't tell me the gene, I'm just going to take that as a concession, right? Because you're telling me something that exists, but you're not telling me what it is.
I'm giving you the testing data, right?
No, but you're not pointing me in any direction. You haven't brought up a source. I mean, you're arguing that there's a biological difference between Black people and white people.
Right. And I'm saying that biological difference is the reason we see the disparities we see.
What is the gene?
And you're trying to scatter what I'm saying.
I'm not interrogating that yet. We're not getting that far yet. What I'm asking you is, if we can draw a direct correlation between the 23rd chromosome and sex, can you fill in the blank for me so we can move past this between which chromosome and race?
Right. They're making these assertions based on testing, studies, and material things we see with our own eyes. No one has pinpointed the exact number of genes, the expression, blah, blah, blah. Just like no one has done it with height. Just like no one has done it. Just like no one has done it with eye color. Just like no one has done it with finger length. Right? So if you're asking them to do it.
So the fact that you're incorrect, because here go the sources, right? This is one source you can look at. You can look it up on your own time. It talks about the racist beginnings of standardized testing and how zoning has something to do with it, eating has something to do with it, and due to things like environmental racism, food deserts, low educational budgets for schools for Black people, not bad use of textbooks. That's not true. It's bad textbooks. It's still like today in Chicago.
So show me that the testing.
Like shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. You had your chance to talk. You had your chance to talk. Stop interrupting me. Stop doing that. So when it comes to like standardized testing, like all of these things, like this article talks about it. So this is the source. If you don't want to look at what Brookings is saying about it, it talks about intelligence and how we measure intelligence, especially intelligence quotient tests. The Black and white score gap. What it talks about is how it is mostly affected by environment, and by mostly we're talking like 90% infected by environment. Like it's like the second stanza within the fucking within the writings of and then the findings. Duels doesn't have any sources to show.
Yeah.
If we asked him for sources, he wouldn't have any. But I just wanted to go ahead and show everybody that Duels is incorrect and has always been incorrect and will always be incorrect.
Do you think that like Black people are just more prone to crime?
Yes, I think yes. So I need her to show me populations in Africa, right? Because there must be some populations in Africa that don't have any of these constraints that she's talking about, and show me the high IQ populations that have first world standards, first world governmental systems, first world technological systems, right? Because obviously they don't suffer from the same constraints that people in America suffer from. So you should see existing high IQ populations on the continent.
Well, but before you do that, let me ask you a question. Let's say that a white man and a black woman have a baby. How would you determine if that baby is black or white?
Of each, it has the blending of genes. It's
So then race is not real.
Well,
it's not race realism. There is not a race gene because you would either have one or the other, right?
No, it is real because that child will probably, on average, have lower intelligence than a child of full European ancestry and higher intelligence than a child of full African ancestry.
How would it be blended? How could you ever measure that?
You can't.
Right. How can you measure anything in one individual person?
Right.
So you guys like to say
a lot of methodologies. That's why this your argument doesn't make any sense.
Please let me speak. It doesn't make any sense because you guys are your feelings about a reality, right?
What feelings do you think I'm in? I'm part of the privileged group. What do you mean?
And you feel guilty about that. If I was part of the
I don't feel guilty about that. That's not what's happening.
That is exactly
that is not what's happening. Please.
Wait a minute,
Some of the accusations you guys say is fucking hilarious.
Right, but hold on, buddy. Let me just give one thing. You guys love to say that. You guys love to say that white people are inherently racist, right? Please show me the genes that make them inherently racist.
The inherently is due to social conditioning of living in a white supremacist society.
You guys just come up with all sorts of junk.
Literally are the one. You are literally the one here who is defending race realism. We don't believe in race realism, so asking us how race realism is real is not a flex, nigga. It's just showing you don't have an argument for your own stance. How many times do we have to embarrass? How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
You're using a social construction of standardized testing. We don't want the methodology to be a social system. We want it to be a biological test. That's not hard to grasp.
Right. So if I have a particular ailment, right, and I'm displaying symptoms, the doctors are going to look at the symptoms I'm displaying in order to make to make a diagnosis of what I could possibly have, right? Then they're going to take testing to find antibodies for that question.
Right. They're going to test for a virus, an antibody, or a bacteria. They're going to test for something biological. They're not going to give a socially constructed intelligence test. So give us the evidence that shows the biological component.
The evidence are the realities on the ground, the disparities. So testing, right, and other social disparities prove that there are differences cognitively among people.
That can be explained by environmental factors. Give us the biological marker.
There are poor people who are
just like crime can be explained by environmental factors. I can't believe. Yes, it can. It can be absolutely explained by poverty as well as over policing. Those are environmental factors. We want the biological ones. Do it.
How am I going
if it's such a good argument, if it's so grounded in science and is objective, then you will meet our burden of proof.
Right. The biological differences you can see with your own eyes. Those are the biological differences. It is absolutely rooted in biology because you can tell the difference between two.
There's not a gene. No, every example you have given us is influenced by environmental factors. We want it to be. Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Sean has showed you how standardized testing is influenced by environmentally. I have shown you how the outcomes of crime is influenced by environmental factors. We want. If it's that easy, if it's so easy to prove, you should be able to find something.
There are disparities, right? Disparities that we see. Those disparities are not environmental because there are white people who live in the same environments who don't have the same outcomes, right? They have better outcomes because they are more intelligent, so they can get themselves out of a situation that they were born in. And that's a fact. There are white people who are born into poverty, but yet they don't succumb to crime, right?
All right, so that's a concession.
If I leave a blood sample somewhere, why is it that they can tell where that blood sample comes from and who that blood sample belongs to?
It would just be based on ethnicity, not based on race.
Which speaks about something, right?
Blood samples can't tell you. Hold on. Blood samples can't tell you your race. Shut up.
Yeah, they don't.
Yes, they can. When there was a when there was a serial unaliver, right? He left some samples, and you can Google this case and find it. They used his DNA. There's a new sophistication of DNA today to literally paint what he would possibly look like. They figured out that he was a blonde, his eye color, his nose structure, all from his DNA, and his one of his relatives recognized him contact.
there's no genetic test or biological marker that places someone in one race or another. That's just,
Yes, there are.
that's just
Yes,
no, they're not. Then
Google
that's a
right now, they are.
contradiction to what I asked you earlier.
I'll
I
Google
asked
right
you
now.
earlier,
I'll Google right now.
if a black man and a white woman have a baby, what race are they? And you're like, oh, it would be mixed. That doesn't make any sense. Now you're contradicting yourself.
It makes perfect sense because they have a mixture of two
It
genes.
doesn't, because then the baby would either be black or white, because that would be a
the
race
baby is
gene.
neither. The baby is neither black nor white. It is an
Wait,
admixture.
what? That is not a race. There is only 5 races.
Right, so you're getting yourself tangled up here in a tizzy, right? I said earlier
I'm not.
Do that.
I'm not.
that moreover, rich kids of African descent score lower than the poorest of the poor white T kids. And the difference between rich white T kids and poor white T kids is it's not even a standard deviation in terms of standardized testing. So those poor white T kids don't have the same cultural advantages as the rich white T kids, but yet they score in line more or less with them, right? In standardized testing, the rich black kids who do have every single thing, every single access and every single resource that the poor white T kids don't have, still manage to get outscored on standardized testing. So it cannot be the environment, because we see different biological people scoring differently on testing, even when you give the advantages to the kids who are so-called a protected class or whatever you guys call it, what's this thing, underprivileged or whatever. So it's not environment, it's hereditary, it's race, it's biological. That's what explains the disparities we see in the world we live in. So in order to get rid of those disparities, we have to understand why they're happening and then work to address them, not pretend that there's some white T supremacy out there limiting capable people of doing capable things, because that's not what's happening.
We're talking about test scores, and we're talking about like rich white kids versus rich black kids. We can draw school zones to make classrooms less segregated. This is how well your district does. Is your district drawing borders to reduce or perpetuate racial segregation? When it comes to racial segregation, the reason as to why this is important is because school zones go based upon property tax. And when black people have like 1 or 2 rich black people in the area, they would still go to the black school. And when you draw school zones that look like this, right? This is, oh, there it is. That's Omaha, that's Milwaukee, and that's Houston, right? Like, and this goes by percentage, of black, like the percent of black or Hispanic people in these areas, right? These are school zones. So very obviously the school zones are drawn up to be racially segregated because black people are piled in specific areas. This has nothing the fuck to do with genetics. It has everything to do with the environments, redlining, and how school lines are drawn. Now you can look.
So here it is, racial and ethnic differences in the SAT 2023, right? So you said show your source. Show your source. I'm showing your source.
This does not show how race is biological. This is your source to show that race is
You're
biological?
cutting me off again.
I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, I think
It's just a
to
yes
be
or no
fair,
question.
to be fair,
You
that is a
can't
fair
ask me
question.
questions when it's my turn to present my evidence.
Yes,
I'm just
but
presenting
again, we
my
can
evidence.
ask the relevance. That we're asking the relevance of this source. Is it to show that race is biological?
No, this is to show the differences
Well,
in
then it doesn't
SAT.
say
And then
anything.
oh, Jesus Christ. And it had nothing to do with anyone cutting off any funding or any of that nonsense that she talked about. It's literally measuring people's inherent cognitive abilities, right? So it gives you chart about the test participation, right? And it shows you all the different groups. I don't know if my camera's zooming in correctly. It shows you all the different groups, and then it shows you the results per group, right? And you're always going to see people of African descent scoring the lowest in these tests, right? This is a even when other groups are going lower, they go lower too. So it's not, so the test is consistent because it's showing overall over the last few years, all the groups have had lowering scores, and it's affecting people of African descent too, right? It has nothing to do with segregation, right? This is just natural ability. This is natural ability. This test is measuring natural ability, right? So that natural ability is based on what, right? It's based on.
I got you locked in. Silent, you are locked in. Congratulations again.
It's based on genetics, right? Because the tests are measuring what's going on inside and pointing to, here's your source, here's your evidence, here are your charts, here are the results, right? Here are the ones, the Asian scores, scoring to the highest, right? Native American is lower than people of African descent recently, but before it was pretty much in line, right?
Wait, why would it change?
I have a question.
I don't know why I don't know why they're saying it's changing.
Hey, real
Well,
quick.
you just said Native American was lower and now it's higher. Like, why would it change if it's biological?
Well, it's not. It's been correlated. See, look at the two lines have pretty much been around each other the whole time. And
Well,
then
but look, there's variance. Like, why wouldn't these just be straight lines?
Literally this. Duel, can you read what's on my screen right now?
I'm not worried about what's on your screen. I'm worried about the evidence that
You're not worried about the sources, so you can't read?
I'm not asking you to read what's on my screen.
you
I'm
don't-
asking you what's on yours.
So you are asking me to read what's on your screen,
No,
nigga.
I'm
That's
not.
why
I'm
you
showing-
brought it up.
No, I'm not. I'm showing you a
All
source.
right, excellent. All right, so since you're illiterate, I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Brookings University talks about SAT math scores mirror and maintain racial inequity. Do you want me to read the reason as to why they maintain racial inequity, nigga?
Because the people that are taking them are inherently different biologically. That's why.
No. Doesn't say that at all. Doesn't say that at all.
You guys said there's no sources. I'm showing you all the sources.
Yeah, you're not showing me a source that race is biological, and you're not showing me a source that says anything different than race, like different test
All right,
results
hold
because
on, man.
race are
Hold on, man. We're not
due
done
to. You're not showing me any sources that show me the reason as to why, like the racial disparities that are happening, are not due to environment. When I've shown you multiple that say that they are due to environment, I'm literally showing you Brookings right now that says that SAT math scores mirror and maintain racial inequity.
But
Show us a source that intelligence is genetic. Show us any source that intelligence is
I'm
genetic.
literally showing you one right now.
No, you're not. You're showing me a source that SAT scores go based upon racial
No, I'm
guidelines
showing you
that
a
are racist.
scientist.
You are not showing me shit about race
I'm
or
showing you a
intelligence being genetic.
I'm showing you a
But where specifically does it say that intelligence is genetic?
right. It says here, a dominant and recessive allele paired at the same locus in the chromosomes might have the same phenotypic effect as two dominant alleles at that locus. And two, I don't know how to say that word. I don't know how to say that word. A gene at one chromosomal locus affects the phenotypic expression of a gene at some other locus. Dominance and that word again, pestis, I don't know, cause lower correlations between direct line relatives, parents, offspring, and full siblings than would be the case if purely additive genetic effects were the only source of genetic variance.
Now, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means. I'm not a geneticist.
Yo, this can't be real, bro.
I just know that it's
This can't be real.
The source is a study by Ming Hu, and it's the genetics of intelligence from July 31st, 2013.
So here we're gonna do it this way. Here we go.
Ming Hu's blog. And that's his
That's a blog. It's a
Right,
blog,
but
right?
it's the blog post his genetic study. The blog post.
That's a blog post, right?
The blog posts his genetic
What's the
study.
name? What's the name?
Ming Hu.
What is it?
Ming Hu, and his study was the genetics of intelligence.
Let me see who.
This is not a study. It's not peer reviewed. There's nothing about this nigga that really is
You don't know
credible.
what you're talking about. You're not a molecular biologist. You don't know what
I'm
you're
smarter
doing.
than you, dude.
You are not smarter than me.
I've shown you multiple
promise you that.
sources, and
You
you
showed me
haven't
the
shown
Brookings.
us one.
You showed me
You haven't shown us
editorials.
one.
Show me
You haven't
editorials
shown
from
us
the Brookings
one.
Institute. I'm showing you literal studies.
I've shown you NEA.
And you're
I've shown
yelling
you
and you're
Brookings.
screaming and you're
I've shown
having
you
emotional
Harvard.
outbursts.
Hold on. I've shown you NEA. I've shown you Brookings, and I've shown you Harvard. Nigga, which one do you want me to embarrass with you again with? Like, this is literally just a random nigga in his house, like writing. It might as well be a Tumblr post.
No, it's not a Tumblr post. These are genetics.
It's not a Tumblr. I said
You
it might as well.
you don't even know the verbiage he's using. You don't even know
You
it.
know what is WordPress, dude?
I told you I don't answer silly word games.
So you don't know what WordPress is,
I
but
don't
you're on the
answer- I
WordPress.
don't- I
You're
don't
literally
answer
on the
WordPress.
Are you on the WordPress website right now?
I'm
Scroll
literally
all the way to
showing
the
you.
top.
I'm literally showing you a study.
Matter of fact, fuck it. You don't answer questions. Scroll all the way to the top. Show us the website. So we
I'm
can type
literally.
into
I've
our
done it
computer.
many times. I'm not
All right,
doing
show
it
me
again.
again. I missed it. Show me again, so I
Ask
can
Liv.
read
He
this.
knows. Ask Liv. He knows.
Show it to me again. So I missed it.
No, I'm still scrolling through the
I
study.
actually don't see it. I don't see it actually. For real. I got open
Show us the
site.net.
website, dude. Show us the website.
I'm still scrolling through the study. When I'm done,
Show
scrolling
us the website, dude. We don't care. We don't care.
it
Show us
says
the
here,
website.
declined of shared environment.
Show us the website, dude. Show us the. Why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid?
I'll show you the website again.
This is a concession, bro. He's
Ming
terrified to show us the
Hu's
website. That's not the website.
blog.
Show us the URL, nigga. Do you know what website means?
I can't focus. Minghu's blog, minghublog.wordpress.com. And in it,
So it is WordPress. So it is WordPress.
he's posting a genetic study on his
This is a
website.
random nigga in his house.
He's not a random anything. He's a scientist. You have his name. You can look up his credentials. He's literally posting his study.
I think Ming Wu is a woman. So this is a random nigga in her house.
Here's your scientific evidence. Like, boom, look at it. Look at your scientific evidence right there. You're talking about no
What does that
evidence,
mean, though?
no sources.
You don't know what this means.
You don't know what it means either.
You can't say it's scientific.
I know what it means. It's showing. It's showing hetero. Word.
Hold on. What's the title of that study?
Genetic. I'll go back to.
It's not a study. It's a random woman in her house.
The genetics of
What year was that say?
July 31st, 2013, posted by me. Right?
So epigenetic is essentially something that happens on top of. So if we look at, like, let's say the Dutch hunger, for example, during World War II, all of the food was taken out of Holland. And women who were in their second or third trimester of pregnancy, their fetuses learned something very unique genetically. They essentially were told that they were going to enter a starving environment. So their biology changed to where they were very stringent with fats and sugars. And when these people grew up and were in adult life, they experienced health complications such as weight gain, diabetes, because their biology had changed due to their environment. So how can you discount that this is not an epigenetic effect that is derived from the environment?
Easy, because I just told you about rich people of African descent, right? Still continuing to score poorly when compared to poor white people who have the lack that you're speaking of. So if their test scores...
Testing is a social construction. Why can you not give us any biological marker? Why can you not give us any biological marker?
So whatever proof I give you, you're just going to discount it, right? As being...
I'm going to critique your methodology. Yes, methodology is critiqued, and your methodology relies on certain social structures that have implicit biases. So I'm asking you to give me a better methodology, and I don't know why that offends you so. If race realism is a thing, then you should be able to easily give Sean, Liv, and I some kind of study that says race is a gene, is a biological marker.
I just literally showed you a study that you're free to go read.
Blah, 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 blah. Thank you.
This is his source, right? Minghu'sblog.wordpress.com. Can you go ahead and read what this says for me, Kenzie?
Yeah. Decline of shared environment. Another approach to estimate heritability initially proposed by Siegel that circumvents many of the criticisms is the so-called within family. Oh, I don't know what happened.
Good.
It's a so-called within-family adoption design study, also named virtual twin study, in reference to unrelated siblings of the same age. Although in reality, there are two classes of sibships, specifically the adopted, and biological adopted pairs, the relationship of the parents with biological and adoptive children minors, the correlation of MZ and DZ twins. Doubling the difference of these correlations, given an estimate of H2, the correlation among unrelated same-age siblings give a direct estimate of shared environment. Siegel highlights the advantage of an approach as follows. Less frequent mentioned concerns associated with adoptive sibling studies of intelligence are sibling differences in age at testing, age at placement, number of previous residential arrangements, and early health history. For example, new sources of genetic variation associated with cognitive development at age 7 years have been demonstrated so that differences between adoptive siblings above and below this age might be larger relative to the pairs. Such measures are sometimes partialed out of the variables of interest and granted cursory attention, or are not considered at all. Another problematic issue is the differential impact of family or cultural events on siblings who differ in age. Differences in such characteristics could conceivably affect adoptive siblings similarly in intellectual development.
That's all. That's all I needed you to read. Duel, what does that mean? Duel, what does that mean? What did we just read? Yeah, he doesn't know. Kenzie, do you know what we just read?
I'm busy right now. Give me 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's too late. Kenzie, do you know what we just read?
Yeah, so I would say that people who are adopted experience the outcomes of the adopted family rather than their biological parents in terms of their testing.
So this is dual source saying that the intelligence of a person within a family does not have to do with their biology, but their environment. That's fucking crazy.
So I do have a source, though. I have a source here.
In today's digital era, the internet
now
is
it's
both a treasure trove of information and a cesspool of misinformation. Sadly, Duels' dab on an ill-informed simpleton has been swallowed whole by the latter. This blog post explores the mind-numbing journey of Duels' dab, a man whose gullibility and sheer lack of critical thinking led him to embrace the ludicrous ideology of race realism. His story is a stark reminder of how stupidity and the internet can be a dangerous combination. The next paragraph says, "Who is Duels' dab?" Duels' dab is a dull-witted individual who fancies himself an intellectual. Despite his glaring lack of knowledge in genetics, sociology, or anthropology, Duels decided he was qualified to make sweeping judgments about race and intelligence. His primary source of education, question mark, blog posts authored by equally ignorant and prejudiced nomads. The allure of race realism blogs. In the vast expanse of the internet, Duels' dab found himself down to the lowest common denominator, blogs that spew pseudoscientific dribble under the guise of legitimate research. These blogs, filled with cherry-picked data and pseudo-intellectual babble, gave Duels the illusion of understanding complex social issues. His lack of basic critical thinking skills. His lack of basic critical thinking skills made him an easy target for this garbage. These blogs cater to the intellectually lazy, offering simplistic explanations and bogus scientific backing for racist ideologies. For a simpleton like Duels, who was desperate for easy answers and a sense of superiority, these blogs were a toxic comfort zone. The next paragraph is the missteps in Duels' reasoning. Duels' dab's descent into race realism is marked by numeric idiotic missteps, emblematic of his inability to think critically. One, confirmation bias. Like a true fool, Jesus Christ. One, confirmation bias. Like a true fool, Duels only sought out information that confirmed his preconceived notions, conveniently ignoring mountains of evidence to the contrary. He cocooned himself in an echo chamber of ignorance. Two, lack of critical thinking. Duels couldn't differentiate between credible sources and rubbish. He naively accepted the nonsense spewed by self-proclaimed experts without ever questioning their credentials of the validity of their claims. Three, over-reliance on anecdotal evidence. Duels in his infinite stupidity. Jeff. Jesus Christ. Duels in his infinite stupidity believed personal stories and unverified anecdotes over rigorous scientific research. He was swayed by compelling but utterly worthless narratives. Four, misunderstanding correlation versus causation. Duels made the classic blunder of confusing correlation with causation. His simplistic brain accepted spurious correlations as proof of inherent racial differences, ignoring the myriad of socioeconomic factors at play. The dangers of race realism. Jeff, come on, man. Jesus Christ. The asinine beliefs Duels adopted are not just laughably wrong, they are dangerous. Race realism is a thoroughly debunked ideology that perpetuates harmful stereotypes and fuels systemic racism. Embracing such beliefs can lead to real-world discrimination and violence, further entrenching inequities. Duels' idiocy doesn't exist in a vacuum. His propagation of these ideas can mislead others, spreading misinformation and fostering a culture of ignorance and prejudice. A path to redemption. Okay. Although Duels have
Okay, go over it.
okay, all right. Although Duels dab appears to be a lost cause, there is always hope for redemption. Here are some steps that not even someone as dense as Duels can take to pull themselves out of the quagmire of misinformation. One, seek out credible sources. Instead of wallowing in the muck of race realism blogs, Duels should turn to reputable sources like peer-reviewed journals and established news outlets. Two, engage in critical thinking. Come on, man. Developing critical thinking skills is crucial. This means questioning the validity of sources, understanding scientific methodology, and recognizing cognitive biases. Three, education and awareness. Duels desperately needs education. Taking courses in critical thinking, media literacy, and scientific methods can equip him with the tools to discern fact from fiction. Four, dialogue and discussions. Engaging in open, respectful dialogues with knowledgeable individuals can challenge Duels' entrenched beliefs and broaden his perspective. Five, reflect on personal biases. Self-reflection is key. Duels needs to understand how his background and biases have shaped his beliefs, leading to more informed and empathetic viewpoints. Conclusion. Thank God. Duels Dab's foray into race realism is a glaring example of the perils of stupidity in the digital age. The internet, while a source of endless information, requires a modicum of intelligence and critical thinking to navigate effectively. Duel's story serves as a reminder that we must be vigilant in our quest for truth, questioning, learning, and striving to understand the world in all its complexity. By recognizing the pitfalls of misinformation and committing to continuous education and critical inquiry, even a fool like Duels Dab can contribute to a more informed, just, and equitable society. Let's hope his tale of idiocy serves as a wake-up call to others teetering on the edge of ignorance. The end. What? Jesus Christ.
So when you guys are done being sophomoric, and you really look at the data, it'll help you to understand why disparities exist
I would really like
and
to.
how you can actually solve them.
Is it okay if I?
But if you're intent on, cracking jokes and having
We saw them if they're biological. What are you talking about?
Nigga, we saw your source. We read your source, and you're wrong on your
you
own
don't know
source.
you don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, all right. So, but we don't know what the genetic difference is that caused the disparity between twins.
There is no genetic difference.
Okay, well, I'll take my dub and I'll leave. Yeah, I didn't even get to the part I wanted to get to, but I'll take my dub.
So there is so there is. Don't even try it. There is no genetic difference amongst the twins.
It can't be this easy every time. The twins.
I got a question. No,